Okay, well, welcome to another episode of the Sovereign Lounge here. I'm your host, Round the World Man, with Yamin Fauzi. We're going to bring you the latest news and insights from the world of citizenship by investment and residency by investment, as well as in other things that help you to become the sovereign man or the sovereign woman. Let's take a look here at what's on the agenda this week, Yamin. There's been a lot of interesting changes in the world of immigration, investment migration, citizenship by investment. There's been a lot of changes. So can you please dive in and what you've seen recently in the United Kingdom? Because there's been a major shakeup there, as far as I can tell. And I'd like to get your insights and analysis on this, Yamin.
Oh yeah, so this week has been a lot of things have been going on here, especially when it comes to immigration. I would say this is some sort of like Trump effect maybe happening around the world, where all the governments are trying to, getting stricter on immigration. It's always a running theme in the investment migration that I keep telling people it's not going to get easier. But I'm going to dive in now with the UK. Let me check here. Okay, I have here a specific thread from the UK Prime Minister. It says, "We're ending Britain's open borders experiment. For too long, businesses were actively encouraged to bring in lower paid workers, and now they want to fix the system essentially from the office of the UK Prime Minister." So one of the things that are going to change, and which is a significant change in the UK, is that they are raising the skills threshold on degree level to make sure that they can attract the right people. Also that English language is going to be a requirement. And which is also very interesting, and I think the most significant change of all, is that they are doubling the length of the time needed to gain citizenship. So when you had the legal residence permit in the UK, you could get citizenship within 5 years of residency. But now they're changing this from 5 to 10 years. So, which is a very, very long time, if you think about it. There is only a couple of other European countries, for example, like Switzerland, which require 10 years or more to gain citizenship. So, yeah, and also they are shutting down some care visa route. So if you're like in the healthcare sector and you wanted to get a visa, this is no longer going to be the case. And also a very interesting thing is that they are rolling out digital IDs and e-visas for all overseas citizens. So they can track you more, they can pin you down more. Who is overstaying? Who is being here lawful? How long are you actually staying? So essentially what they're doing is they're keeping track now of the immigration. So it's getting harder, to enter the UK. It's not the first, policy that makes it, I would say, more unattractive to settle in the UK. Last year, the non-dom has been abolished, and also now they are making it harder, just to get legal residency and citizenship in the UK. So these are the things that are happening right now in the UK.
Now, yeah, that's a great summary. I mean, now I wanted to ask you though, as you've reviewed this breaking change or this breaking development here in the UK, have you come across anything where it might just become harder to, whether it's you're doing the channel route on the train or flying in one of the airports, or maybe you're doing a ferry boat crossing or something? Is it going to be actually harder to get into the UK now, or even as a tourist potentially, or is it is this mostly focused on people that are trying to become immigrants or naturalization, kind of this process, people looking for a legal path to maybe residency or citizenship? Where do you see things there on the tourism side?
Well, the tourism side has also increased their or tightened the regulations when it comes to this, because before me as a Swiss or Schengen citizen member state, I could freely travel in and out of the UK, as I would like to. But now there is like an electronic travel authorization that is required for EU member state citizen and EFTA member state citizen, which include Switzerland. So they are really tightening, the control of immigration on all fronts, be it legal, tourism, business, etc., taxation. So it's, unfortunately, the UK is going into a trend where not only it's getting tighter, it's getting also more unattractive to actually stay there. Once they have abolished the non-dom taxation rules last year, it has resulted into like an exodus of millionaires, high net worth individuals leaving the country, because they say, well, there is no point in being taxed there, even though like this tax rule has been there for over 200 years. It's very fascinating to see these changes. And the UK is not the only one in this space that is tightening the regulations.
So to recap, the big news that came out, I believe it was last year in 2024, was the non-domicile tax situation was changing.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and so now they're making yet another change here. So this is just one of those things to be aware of, for everybody out there that's interested in the topic of sovereignty and freedom of movement. That these rules tend to they wax and wane a little bit over time, but that's more on the scope of generations. And in this case, we saw a little bit of some change there on the tax side last year, and now we're seeing some changes on the immigration side of things as well. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up the situation with like just even making, let's say you're legitimately interested in just being a tourist or have a business trip to the UK. One of the reasons why I was bringing that up was because there's also been some changes in Argentina as well in recent. Actually, I think it just happened within the last 24 hours or so.
Correct. Yeah.
What I'm reading here is a report that foreigners, I guess, including tourists, and again, Argentina is a huge country for tourism. You got everything from glaciers to beautiful waterfalls, national parks. You got the ocean. It's a huge destination for tourism. And I'm seeing that now supposedly the border guards in Argentina are asking foreigners to declare specifically what their purpose is and their duration of stay upon entry into Argentina. And I guess one of the things that really stands out to me is that I know there's been a lot of people that have just kind of like stayed underneath the radar in Argentina for many years, 15, 20 plus years. People would just pay like some fine if they overstayed their tourist trip. And it seems like the Malay administration in Argentina is really starting to, make some changes there. And I wanted to get your kind of analysis on this, or your comments at the very least. And I realize that this is a very recent development in Argentina. So, neither one of us are going to be probably fully prepped on it. But I think the summary is that there's been an official drop from the Malay administration. But what's your thoughts on this right now, Yamin?
Yeah, so it's as I said before, I think there's some sort of Trump effect going on with stricter immigration worldwide, and Argentina is also not an exception to this. I remember when I was there last time in 2023. That's where we actually met the first time in Buenos Aires. Immigration was very lax. They didn't stamp my passport. The border guards were dressed very casually, which I found very funny. Usually it's like some sort of police uniform or some specific border uniform. But when I entered Ezeiza airport, I felt like, well, this is just like, it feels very unprofessional, when you come in. And that was also the rulings regarding immigration. Immigration in Argentina was very free flowing, I would say. When you overstayed, it was not really a crime. There was no such thing as illegal immigration in Argentina by the definition of law. Technically, anybody could come there, and stay as long as they wanted. You could come there day one and apply for permanent residency, essentially. I mean, obviously it takes a while until you actually get it,
Right,
but after
right.
2 years,
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
get citizenship.
you saw this a lot in recent years because things have deteriorated a lot in places north of Argentina. For example, in Venezuela, the economic situation there went from bad to really, really bad in recent years, and that's saying a lot because the economy in Argentina has also had major challenges in recent years, but a lot of essentially economic refugees, for lack of a better term, have left Venezuela to go to other places like Colombia. Some have obviously moved to Argentina as well. And I definitely have seen situations where the embassy of Venezuela on Avenida Santa Fe in Buenos Aires has just got big lines of people out because there's been, people that have been living in Argentina for a number of years and they still need to do various tasks, whether it's renewing a passport, getting a new ID card, such and so forth. And so, yeah, this is a big change, I think, in Argentina regarding like you have to declare what your intention is. Like maybe I'm a tourist or whatever. Because what I'm reading in one of the summaries here is that you actually if you want to, for example, obtain citizenship in Argentina, you need to declare that potentially as you're crossing the border. And it looks like you're going to maybe have to stay there without leaving, possibly as well. And so it looks like
Correct, yeah.
the Milei administration, you call this a Trump effect. And of course, I'm sure you're aware that Milei, Javier Milei, that is, the president of Argentina, as well as President Donald Trump, have actually had some recent meetings in over the last few months. I believe Elon Musk was at a few of those meetings as well. Yeah, it's interesting to see this effect happening in places like the UK and in Argentina. And so I really appreciate your thoughts there.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly show the viewers here what we are talking about. You can actually see it now from the screen that it has been, from 19 hours ago. Here it's in German. So there is a official communication from the office of the president in Argentina. Here it's in Spanish, but our guy Bauta Mara on X, he has made a little summary on English for everybody who doesn't speak the language. So foreigners must declare the purpose and duration of the stay upon entry. So, and if they exceed the declared time or engage in unauthorized activities, meaning crimes, they become illegal immigrants. So this time does not accrue towards citizenship and they will be deported. So this is a new thing. They're actually going to start deporting people. The 2-year permanent residency requirement to obtain citizenship, declaring the intention to become a citizen upon entry, and complying to the legal process without leaving the country during that period. So you have to stay a full 2 years in Argentina. There used to be like this loophole where you could go on to, just leave to the border and, go unchecked and then just claim that you have spent 2 years. So they're becoming now quite stricter. If you have a criminal record, you will not be allowed to enter. I'm not sure how they're going to enforce this, unless you're on an Interpol watch list.
Right. That seems like that'd be a very hard thing for them to enforce. It's,
correct. Yeah. I mean,
it's only. I think that they're just trying to just state that they don't want people with a criminal history showing up is what they're trying to get at, because when you go through the legal process in many countries, you're required to get some sort of police report, background check, whatever you want to call it, or criminal, like a lack of criminal activity report. There's any number of ways to describe that in English, but yeah, they're basically saying like, hey, like if you've got problems somewhere else, we don't want you to bring them here. And also what they're saying is, you're going to be deported if we don't like what you're doing here in Argentina. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And also a very interesting development is this one here, the last one. All foreigners must purchase health insurance before entering, or their stay will be considered illegal. I'm not sure, because as I understand, healthcare in Argentina is free for anybody who has been to Argentina. So I'm not sure why they need health insurance if it's free. I mean, or if it's just for visitors, is it for people who want to gain residency? You know, I mean, here it doesn't say it. Perhaps it is written here in the official communication, or perhaps in some sort of law code that is going to be a little bit more in depth than just a summary.
And a nice hat tip, nice hat tip to the Bowtied Mara for at least giving us a few bullet points, because this is just one of these things that just happened in less than, essentially 24 hours or less from now. So we'll have to think about taking a deep dive through this official communication from the office of President Javier Milei. But this is a big development nonetheless, and we'll have to monitor this over time to see if, in fact, the way that this is being described is, in fact, how things will be executed on the ground. Because, I've heard stories from people that, are just trying to leave to go on a holiday with their family, or or visiting other family members somewhere else outside of Argentina, where the border guards in say one of the airports or whatever have made it very difficult to just do a family holiday outside of Argentina. You have to have huge stacks of documents and stuff like that. And I don't know if that was written, in the legislation, or if that's just the way that they decided to do things. So again, how things are written in the law versus how they're actually interpreted will be something that, is going to be interesting to see how that develops over time.
Absolutely, that's what I see as well. And I mean, there's this general trend going on worldwide where rules are getting stricter and stricter every single year. I mean, I have a collection here which I'm about to show now on why it is important. I want to make a little bit of an emphasis here on the Sovereign Lounge, that we want to help you become sovereign and make the next moves, plan your next moves. So if you have the resources and you're interested in any program, apply for it. Don't wait too long. Most of the time, it will not get easier. It's very rare that there has been routes that have gone easier, but they always usually tend to go in a very strict route. And I'm going to show you some of this.
And as you're queuing that up, I just want to put some footnotes onto what you just said there, because speaking of the Sovereign Lounge here, I just had a very interesting meeting with a client a couple days ago, and he actually gave me a perfect example of what you just described, where these things a lot of times become more difficult over time rather than easier. And he actually showed up in Paraguay a few years ago, just days before they ended their fast track to permanent residency in the Republic of Paraguay. And of course, for any of our fabulous listeners that are not familiar with Paraguay, this is a landlocked country bordering Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia, in South America. And they actually had a fast track to permanent residency. And as you know, a lot of times permanent residency in most countries will lead to citizenship after some amount of time. But days before this client, we had a really wonderful call the other day. And he was, of course, obviously interested in pursuing, a new residency for himself. And he had to tell me that Paraguay was out of the picture for him at that point in time, because he was going to have to do the temporary residency situation, and essentially there was an overnight change in Paraguay's program. So this is just one of those things to be aware of. And let's see what you have pulled up here for notes. I think you're getting ready to.
Yeah, well, it's funny, because I had also a client for Paraguay, which on the day we applied for permanent residency, they changed the law to it. So he got the temporary residence route. I'm going to show it here. Yeah, it says new rules for Paraguayan residency status. Apologies here. So up until October of 2022, what happened is you could apply for permanent residency directly only by showing a proof of a $5,000 deposit.
Right.
So what you needed to do is back then is you needed to put $5,000 in a Paraguayan I don't know, some sort of escrow account, and that was sufficient enough, to get permanent residency. And then you could withdraw as soon as you got the card, the residency card, you could immediately withdraw the cash again. So the money was just there to prove, and then you could take it out. And on October 18th, what happens is that before getting permanent residency, you need to go with the temporary residency route first. So you need at least 2 years of temporary residency, then you can change to permanent residency, and then to citizenship.
Right. This is exactly what the client the other day ran into. He showed up. I believe he was in Asuncion just days, maybe a week or two, essentially after this had taken effect, and he didn't know that this took effect here on the 18th of October, 2022. He wasn't aware of that, and he had already booked his travel and all that. And some of these news, the news sometimes travels slower and faster. And this is, of course, one of the reasons why we are bringing you the Sovereign Lounge, to keep you informed and up to date on these topics as they're developing, because the world is big and you do need to grab a seat somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's not the only thing, with Paraguay. I can give you tons of examples here. Also in 2022, what happened? So you could, this article here from IMI Daily that I put up is Turkish citizenship by investment rises to $400,000 today. So in 2020, up to June 14th of 2022, you could purchase a real estate for $250,000 anywhere in Turkey and get approved for instant citizenship. And then they raised the requirement to $400,000, so you need to put more. At the same time, they also opened more routes available, so you could buy Turkish bonds, you could deposit the equivalent of $400,000 in a Turkish bank account and do the same thing. But still, the requirements, they got higher to enter. A year later, what happens? Montenegro closes its CBI program. Montenegro, the small country in the Balkans, they used to have a citizenship by investment program for about 3 years. It was very nice. You could also invest in real estate between 250 and 400,000 US dollars equivalent. Then you could get a citizenship almost instantly as well. They closed it in January of 2023, so it's no longer available.
Yeah, they did an extension, I believe, for 1 year. It was kind of a soft extension, I think. They were still taking applications.
Yeah.
They said they were closing
Correct,
it.
yeah.
They said they were closing it, but I believe they were still taking applications. They just wanted to phase out the program.
Yeah, and also, with the Caribbean 5, the CARICOM 5, how I call them, they raised the minimum investment from 100,000 to 200,000 in 2024. So the citizenship, you needed to pay twice the price than before. That changed as well. And then, just as the news happened, I think 2 weeks ago, the EU decided to shut down Malta's golden passport or citizenship by investment program. So as you can see, it's not getting easier. It's always getting the requirements are always getting tighter. The rules are getting stricter. That's always what I say. And people are going to regret not investing into it when it was cheaper, when it was better, when the restrictions weren't that high. So I keep seeing that, unfortunately, and if you have the resources, just go for it. That's what I can tell you.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. It's at the very least, getting a foot into some of these programs, if not 2 feet. Again, I have clients that have making entry roads into multiple programs because their schedule allowed them to do so. Their finances allowed them to do so. And as you said, a lot of these programs had a pretty low barrier to entry, in the sense that, look at this Paraguay program. A bank deposit, but then you get your money back. So as long as you're okay without having that sitting, available to you for some amount of time, whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 6 months, it just depends on the specific program. a lot of these end up being very affordable. And
I still have to.
Yeah.
I still have to mention here regarding Paraguay is that it's still ridiculously easy to get into Paraguay as of right now, because there is, even for the temporary residence route, there is no investment required. You only have to pay the government fees, the agent handling fees, etc. That's it. You can still get the temporary residency and then upgrade it into permanent residency and potentially into citizenship as well. So Paraguay is still on the radar. I'm not sure for how long, to be honest, because I keep seeing that, if I look a little bit on the horizon, I can see that something is happening. So for Paraguay, I would encourage you, if you have plans there, do it as soon as possible, because
if it's on your mind to take advantage of it, because as we saw back in the end of 2022, you could go straight, or before the end of 2022, you could go straight into permanent residency program there, and they changed things, pretty drastically.
It was unannounced.
Yeah, it was unannounced.
Yeah, it wasn't unannounced.
And again, like I said, I have clients that showed up. They weren't my clients at the time, but they had showed up just days before that change took effect, had no idea that was going to happen. And essentially showed up there with the idea that they could go straight to permanent residency, and then they found out they're basically just getting a temporary residency. So things change sometimes quite drastically in these programs, and it's an important thing to cover. So listen, this has been a fantastic episode here of the Sovereign Lounge. The world is big. You're going to need to grab a seat somewhere. Thank you, Yamin, for your expert analysis here. I really appreciate it. I am Around the World Man.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Yamin. We'll sign off for now. See you next time.